So back, and now I have the mixer with me, the mixie with a small jar grinder, and that is the hazelnut. So here we are going to do the hazelnut, choco hazelnut sandwich cookies, right? So we are going to start with making the hazelnut butter right from the hazelnut itself, right? And we are going to make ganache with it. Use the hazelnut butter and then mix it with the ganache, the milk chocolate ganache, and then make the ganache itself, which has the hazelnut butter infused in it. And we're also going to make cookies, which has the chocolate chunks, and it also has hazelnut in it. So the hazelnut is going to be bursting out from everywhere, with the milk chocolate being part of the cookie dough itself, and also the ganache. So the whole thing together is just going to be beautiful. The milk chocolate and the hazelnut together is a very, very beautiful combination. Okay, so to start with, I'm just going to add the hazelnuts in the small mixer, right? I'm just going to put it in and close the lid. I haven't yet closed. I'm going to close it and fix it in and start going to the first speed, and then check how it is going to look. Show you, I'm going to go on stage after stage to check how this hazelnuts, without the addition of anything else, sorry, is going to turn into a butter which will start releasing oil within itself, and we are just going to have a paste. Okay, so we're just going to have hazelnut paste without the addition of anything else, and that is what we will call as hazelnut butter, and by that itself is hazelnut butter. Okay, so just going to open up to show. Just a minute. Okay, sorry. So this is how it looks. It is just broken down the hazelnuts into smaller pieces. What we are going to use is crunchy hazelnut butter, which means as I am processing, I'm just going to take out some of the crunchy bits from this and then set it aside, which I will be using to add it into the smoother paste. Okay, so from this, what I'm going to do, have another bowl, and then from here I'm just going to take a spoonful, but remove off the bigger chunks. Like I don't want like really bigger chunks at this stage, so I'm going to find the bigger chunks and then put it back in the mixer, but then have reasonably smaller bits to add that crunch into the hazelnut butter. That crunch is really nice, but if suppose you are looking at having a smoother consistency itself, then you can skip the step of keeping that crunchy bits separately. Okay, so these ones I've just kept it aside, and now this, which has a mix of bigger and the smaller bits, I'm going to close the lid back again. Okay, and then I'm just going to start beating. So you can see it has just become fine powder now. I'm just going to take it out and then show you. Okay, so the fine powder looks like this, and then you can see the sides is just starting to stick onto the sides here, right? And then the inside is just starting to stick to the walls. Okay, so it's slowly about to release the For making the hazelnut butter, you don't need to toast. What I'm using is the hazelnut I got. I'm just going to go on the bottom and then loosen up and put back. Close the lid gently so it is easier for me to open up. Okay. You see at this stage it is going to get a little tougher for it to start continue beating. So the next stage looks like this, where it is going to stick onto the outside the edges of the mixer and put it back. Just loosen it up and put it back so the mixer is able to grind it furthermore. Okay, so just trying to do a reverse also. So it's all stuck to the sides. So moving for itself is just not easy at the moment, but you can see it is becoming that paste, but I'm looking at more oil coming out and this becoming a even smoother and a finer paste, for which I'm just going to release it from the bottom and scrape it down and then put it back and then beat for a little longer. So it's even a smoother paste now, right? I'm just going to beat it again, but it is better paste consistency than the previous one. I'm going to also beat it for a little more time on the high speed. Okay, and this time there is quite a bit on the lid as well. I'm just going to scrape what's sticking to the lid of the jar. Okay, and now start to beat. Now the top lid, right? It has just been coated with the smooth butter, hazelnut butter. I'm just going to first remove the top lid. Hopefully it is done now. So what you can see is quite a bit of oil texture has been released, and it is like the smooth paste. And now we have the hazelnut butter finally done and ready. Okay, so I'm just going to get this bowl and empty the hazelnut paste in it. Trying to get every bit because you can't be wasting part of it. Just get everything from the lid as well. Okay, so this is the smooth hazelnut butter. Okay, so it's just from grinding the hazelnut, and look at how it's flowing. So just going to grind it until we're just going to have this consistency. Okay, so it's just going to flow like a paste. Into this, for the crunchy element, I'm just going to add that little bit of the hazelnuts which was not ground, and it was taken before it just turned into the butter. And this I'm just going to mix it. And then this we're just going to use a portion of this in the cookie. Now, before moving with the cookie, just be making the ganache. So there's hazelnut butter in the ganache as well. So as the ganache is setting, then we could do the cookies. I mean the ganache, and we could do the cookies, right, in the meantime. So the ingredients, you can look what we have here is the milk chocolate, the cream, and then the hazelnut butter as well. Okay, so in the saucepan, I'm just going to do the double boil method only. But obviously you could microwave, put these both together into the microwave and then mix until the both are melted, like the cream and the chocolate. And after which you can add the hazelnut butter into it and then mix. But I couldn't get the microwave here on this table that I'm working. So I'm just going to have it done in the double boil method. I'm going to have, and there's no harm in doing double boil method in case you're not having the microwave. Okay, so let the water here come to a rolling boil, after which I'm just going to place this bowl with the chocolate on top of it. And when you're doing double boil method, the bowl that you're using on top of the saucepan should not be touching the water in the saucepan. Then I will be adding the cream, and once the chocolate and the cream melts completely, and then I will be adding the hazelnut butter into it. I mix and combine the both together and then set it aside. I'm just waiting for the water to boil. Substitute for hazelnut, peanuts. Peanut is really nice for this, to have it along with a chocolate to make the ganache as well, and to add it in the cookie dough as well. And peanut butter is quite easy to get. So you can buy the peanut butter and skip making the butter part to yourself to avoid the texture work. But because hazelnut butter is expensive for us to get, and hazelnut itself is nice and readily available, and yeah, making butter and then to feel that we have made it from scratch is really good. Brand of chocolate I'm using is Van milk. Okay, so now I can see the water is bubbling up, right? And now I'm just going to place the bowl of chocolate and bringing the heat to medium, and I'm just going to add the cream into it as well. What the cream I'm using is 25% fat. For making ganache, you could use 25 to even up to 35, whichever is readily available to you. Because right from 25 to 35 works just fine for making ganache. So added all the cream in. I just have the peanut butter to be added. I'm going to let the chocolate melt in that heat and combine with the cream. So I'm going to wait until the chocolate completely melts and blends with the cream. And then I will add the hazelnut butter also inside. Compound, see, it all depends on using the compound versus couverture. It is about your personal decision. I may not be able to force on that because cost factor comes into picture, but 100% the taste difference is there. Using compound hits the flavor. If possible, on your trials, you could do it once with compound, any brand, Mode, Vanilla, and then also check once with Van Houten, because Van Houten is not as expensive as Calibo, and the flavor difference is like so much. There is drastic levels of flavor difference between using the couverture and the compound. So it's like, to me personally, I may not be using a compound on desserts that has to be eaten. Compound to me right now I'm using only for making chocolate decorations where I don't have to temper. But it depends on your clientele and how much are they going to pay, whether you are going to cover the cost of the ingredients, and are you going to stick to that level of the clientele. That is important. So I may not be able to force on telling, yes, couverture is a must, because you are the better judge for the kind of product you going to use, and is that going to be worth it at the end. And then I am now going to add the hazelnut butter. They're measured ingredients, so I'm just going to use up and empty all of it. And now in that heat itself, I'm going to combine the hazelnut butter with the ganache. Obviously, the chunky pieces will remain, but that is what we intend to having at the end. Amul chocolate, I'm not suggesting to use because depending on the cocoa solids and the flavor for how much it is going to help with the baked desserts. I'm not a big fan of the Amul chocolate. Okay, so it's blended in quite well. Switching off the stove, taking it off the heat, and then getting it off the double boil heat as well. And then I'm just going to mix it quite well. It's got hot now. I'm just not able to lift it up and get it closer to the video. So I'm just showing it from here. Okay, so this is what we have, the crunchy hazelnut ganache made. And now it just needs to be resting maybe in room temperature. But now we just have to make the dough, cookie dough, right? And we have to put this in the refrigerator because I'm going to use this ganache only. I don't have another batch made and setting. So now, because I have to use it like in the next half an hour, I'm going to pop this in the fridge. Okay, and let me clear up just a bit, give this away for to be cling wrapped and kept it in the fridge, right? And now moving on to making the cookie dough. Getting the KitchenAid to the center. Okay, and then the stand mixers bowl and the paddle attachment. So the ingredients I have here will be the hazelnut butter, obviously. And so the butter and the sugar together, there are two sugars here, the white, which is the castor, and then the brown sugar to get beaten up. And I'm also having the hazelnut butter, which will be part of it. And then finally the milk chocolate chunks are going to be added. I want a bowl to sift the all-purpose salt and baking powder. And obviously there is egg. Okay, so to start with, let me sift the flour mixture. And before that, preheat your oven to 180 degrees Celsius. And while I have the baking tray lined up with the silicone mat or the silpack, ready for the scoops of the cookie dough to come in here, setting this aside. Now I have a bowl and the sieve, the white sieve. And into this, I'm going to add in the all-purpose flour. Baking powder and the salt. Sift this and keep aside. Now with a KitchenAid bowl, I'm just going to beat the butter and sugar. I'm going to fit it with the paddle attachment. So adding the butter in first and both the sugars at a time. Now, obviously, this is creaming method where we have to be beating the butter and the sugar for about 5 to 7 minutes until it just becomes light and creamy. just going to check the texture, like you know how the butter and the sugar with the brown sugar is going to turn to. Now this needs to get beaten up for furthermore time. You can check the texture, how it is, you know, lighter and fluffier at this time. Into this, I'm just going to add the egg, empty all the egg because it's been weighed, and fold the sides. I mean, scrape down and fold it together. And I'm going to continue beat it for 1 minute on medium speed because I want the egg to be incorporated properly. So that's how it looks after the egg is incorporated into this. The last thing is to add the hazelnut butter in. And after the hazelnut butter gets incorporated fully, and then I'm going to fold in the flour and give it just a little bit of beating. So after adding the hazelnut butter also, it looks like this. And into this, I'm going to add in the flour mixture that's been sifted together, right? And that goes in, and I'm going to fold it with the spatula once, but still I'm just going to beat it just once until so just moisten up the flour, okay? And do not overbeat after the stage. 3 seconds on slow speed and get everything combined together. We still have the milk chocolate chunks to go in, which we will fold it in. Okay, so the cookie dough is all ready. I'm just going to scrape down well, okay, and add the milk chocolate chunks. You can see they are cut into like really smaller pieces. I'm going to break this down, separate them, because cutting and then leaving it together maybe in the fridge, because you don't want to cut them out and then leave it in the room temperature. They will soften up, right? So you could cut them up and keep it in the fridge. So when you're adding it in the dough, you want it to be firm, but keeping the cut chunks in the fridge could just stick it one with each other. So when you're putting it in the dough, make sure you separate them, or otherwise you're just going to have 2-3 of the cut chunks sticking together. But by that, it will just be too much of chocolate in one place and then not enough in a few places. Okay, so all the chocolate chunks are added, separated and added, and after which fold them together, making the chocolate chunks to get evenly distributed, spread in the cookie dough. Now, if there was an ice cream scooper, it would be easier to scoop and place it in the prepared pan. I don't have an ice cream scooper. I'm just going to use 2 spoons to pick up the cookie dough and place it on the prepared mat. In case you do not have an ice cream scooper like me, or you are not able to handle it with 2 spoons, then you could cling wrap this batter at the stage and allow it to firm up, after which you can place it on the cookie tray, which is the prepared baking sheet. One more spoon. Okay, so I'm just scooping out. Okay, so here is the cookie dough. I'm just scooping it, okay, and I'm going to use another spoon to just gently transfer it onto the baking tray. I could keep them 2 inches apart. I'm going to shape them, just get the edges rounded up and even. once I place the scoops there on the baking tray. So I'm just cleaning up the edges on the spoon. So as I'm just going to drag it out, it will be quite even. You can have some water in this. Some drinking water on this one. So I'm just going to damp my fingers and then just go around and then soften up and then send this out for baking. Okay. Just softening the edges. And then just making it round. You used an ice cream scooper, then you can skip the step. Okay, so as I do that, after the stage, I will be sending this cookie tray with the cookie dough that's been lined up nicely rounded into the oven to bake at 180 degrees Celsius for about 18 to 20 minutes until the bottom edge is golden brown. And depending on whether you want a crunchy, crispier cookie, you could allow it to bake a little longer. But if you're going to look at chewy, softer inside, then you will allow it to bake for a little lesser time, which will be maybe around 18 minutes only. Now, this sending it into the oven to get baked. So that's how the cookies are baked beautifully. Now, I'm just having the ganache that we made. I have just the hazelnut chocolate ganache, milk chocolate ganache. I've just filled it in the piping bags. Now I just want to take the cookie down. I let it brown a little more. I like it crunchy. Okay. So the bottom is brown. So when you are done with baking, this is what you will have. The center will be pale and then the edges are brown. So this is on the higher side. This browning is on the higher side. You could stop before the stage as well. When it is golden brown also, you could stop baking, but then the inside is going to be soft and chewy. So that's how it is going to be. Right now, I'm going to chop the piping bag and going to pipe the ganache. Okay, pipe just that much and take a pear and sandwich it together and gently give a little press. Okay, so you can see the ganache is in the inside, peeping out and not flowing. Okay, so one is done. Not piping till the edge here, right? pressing it quite gently. So the ganache, you can see the consistency. It is cold. It was kept in the fridge and taken out, just before starting to fill, and then it's just right here in the room temperature. You could make it in smaller, but if you're just maybe going to add as one cookie in your hamper, then maybe a size this big will be really good. Or maybe you could add 2. Now this, once the ganache sets, this is like really good staying in room temperature. I'm just going to put them on. I'm just going to have the choco chip or the hazelnut sandwich cookies. I'm just going to, obviously we could break it and use. Giving a little time for the ganache to set would be really good as well. Okay, we could break it also in place of cutting it. So let me check. Okay, so the crunchy biscuit with the hazelnut chocolate filling oozing out is like the beautiful sandwiched cookie. Okay, we could allow a little more time for this ganache to set, after which you will have the ganache just staying in place without it having to ooze out. It just needs that little extra time. We've come to the end of this session. We have just completely made all the 4 Christmas baking dishes. I just can't wait that you guys actually try it out. So what I suggest when you have to do it for yourself is to just follow the recipe once and okay, follow the recipe and make them once as it is given, and then get to the texture, understand the temperature, and see the texture and how should you store it and all that, and then go on to making it double or triple, and then start working out to take your order. So first make and then show the pictures out once you have the quality of what you're going to make. You have it just right. Then we also have the group where you can make and then show the pictures to me. So support will be there until the Christmas day, because hopefully you're just going to have your orders lined up till the Christmas. And so we'll be there to support you till you're just going to be ready to make all of it and then fill your Christmas hampers with it. Okay, so I'm going to read through the questions that are left out, which needs to be answered. What's the shelf life of the fruit mince pie and how to store it? And can all the recipes be doubled or tripled while making bigger batches? Yes, everything can be doubled or tripled, and then depending on how much your KitchenAid stand mixer could take in, so that much time you can just double or triple. I just portioned it down because when you're going to try it out for the first time, I don't want you guys to kind of work out on the recipe and then cut it down into half and then try and do. I just want you to read the recipe and then try it out, so you have the minimum portions like we made, and then this is all we have at the end of the day. Like there's nothing hiding, or we didn't even make that extra, right? So we have the smallest portion given. You could even make it like 5 times, 6 times as much as your KitchenAid could take. You know that when we are beating that, it was just in the bottom of the KitchenAid, right? So it will take even 6 times if you have to, make it more portion. Okay. And the fruit mince pie that we have tested, the pie filling alone, it just stays in for a month in fridge. No worries at all. Now you can make the short bread dough and also refrigerator. You could freeze it, and then before you're using, you could take it out and then leave it in the fridge overnight, and then the next day it is ready for you to roll and then make. So that way you can make the dough, you can make the filling, and then keep it refrigerated, and then when you have the order, when you have like too many numbers in order, then you can maybe start making a couple of days ahead making, and then even leaving in room temperature, but properly packed and keeping it in room temperature, which is once these are done, they dry on the outside. They don't need anything else to safeguard them, but then put them like maybe 6 in a Ziploc and then completely put the air out of the Ziploc, seal it and then wrap it, and then keeping it in room temperature also just works fine. Or you could refrigerate to be on the safer side. But now when you're refrigerating, you have to think about when you're taking out, condensation is going to happen. When the condensation is going to happen on top of the shortbread pastry, this layer is going to become soggy. So what are you going to prevent it from becoming soggy? Now you're going to wrap it in the Ziploc, allow no air to be inside the Ziploc, and then cling wrap it again and allowing no air to go. And you could freeze it to be even kept for 2 weeks, and anything within a week in refrigerator should be fine. But when you're going to take it out, do not remove off the cling wrap before the condensation completes happening. So you have to allow the condensation to happen on the outside. And once that is done, when you take it out, so when you're taking it out, if it is dry, like how it is now, then it will be good from then on again for 3-4 days. Even if you're going to give it out to hamper to somebody, if they are gifting to somebody else, they could actually keep it and then have it nicely. Like it's not going to be bad. But obviously these are desserts. At the end of the day, we prefer that it goes into the fridge and then next day allow it to thaw to room temperature to eat. Obviously, cookies can stay in the room temperature, but so the entire day, like a couple of days for the whole thing to be in room temperature, I'm sure nothing is going to happen because they all have good amount of sugar. They are all safe to be there. 2 days outside is fine, but you have to refrigerate without letting the outside surface exposed in the refrigerator, which is even taking these cookies and keeping it in the airtight box and sealing the top with just the lid is not the good idea, because inside the airtight box there is gap, and from the cookie it it evaporates, the moisture goes out, touches the top of the lid, and then again that condenses back, and then they all start getting the moisture and sticky. So a Ziploc or cling wrap and then refrigerate or freeze for longer. Okay. What would be the final weight of the fruit cake? What we made is half, right? So the recipe that is given to them. So 1200, it is more than a kg. That recipe that is given to you will make more than a kg. Okay. And thickness of the pie shell and how to measure the thickness, the size of the tart molds. See, tart molds that are available, I think this should be about 3-inch wide. What we have here is 3-inch wide. See whatever is available, because at the end of the day, you have to make the tart, right? And then the baking time will vary depending on the size. But what we are going to look at is the golden brown on the top. Okay, so irrespective of that exact size to be made available to you, you first get the tart shell. But if you are going to even get that, I have a tart mold which is even smaller than this, the mini tart molds. You could even use that, but obviously it's going to take a little lesser time to bake. The thickness may be around 3 mm should be fine. 2 mm to 3 mm should be fine. You don't want it like really thick as well. You don't want it like 1 mm, like the fondant that you roll to drape. That is not the size we would need. We need a little thicker to hold the filling inside. And so we are able to just, cut it using the fork and then eat it. What is the final weight? Is done. Is that one question? If we make more quantity of the mixture and bake only little, can we keep the mixture in the fridge for say 1 whole day? You can do that. Like you can make a bigger quantity of the batter, and then if your oven is going to take only like say 4 pans at a time, the rest of the batter can remain say maybe for a 2 hours maximum, I think would be fine. So manage your time, like for 2 batches together, depending on the oven size, you can just put it in the make the batter and keep, but say maybe not make the entire batter in the morning and make batter after batter and batch after batch, and then maybe start baking everything like after say 4 in the evening, and then you're just going to bake the entire thing. Maybe that is not a good idea. You can just make the batter of how much your stand mixer or your bowl is going to take, and that you can maybe keep it in the oven. After one set is baked, you can take out, put the next set, and in the meantime you can start making the next batch. So in that rotation, if your work will be better, instead of like maybe one day you're just making the batter and then the next day you're just going to bake. That is not a good idea. Can you give us an idea of how much could we price each of the items? Yeah, like I said, pricing, I cannot directly say this financiers are, maybe 100 of financier. Then you could go ahead and do the same thing. That may not work out because of the chocolate that we are going to use also, right? What you're going to use and what I'm going to use. Obviously, for everywhere, what is the kind of dry fruits that I'm going to use in the fruit cake and this as well. But I'm just going to discuss the pricing again. Even for the eggless, I said the same thing. I'm going to discuss the pricing on the WhatsApp instead of giving it here. But to give a brief idea, like any other baked goods, like your pricing, this is also going to be, which is like we are going to add every other cost for the product of that particular recipe. And the ideal value will be to multiply that entire thing, all the ingredients put into that one particular recipe, and multiply it by 3, and then you have the entire batch's cost. And top of that, you feel like if this is elite, and then that elite addition should come. Now here the problem is, who's going to consider my product is elite, and then I'm going to have that extra price. And now to beat the competition, if someone is not going to add the price, the cost for the elite status of the products that we are going to make, and then we have just lost the market. So obviously that part is always there, like, the up and down will be there. So the exact same product, maybe there is a friendly neighbor baker who's going to bake it for less, and then maybe they're going to bake it for more, and then they are still doing well, and then we are not even that expensive, but maybe we're still not going good, or it could be the vice versa. But then the ideal way to do is to write down every ingredient, like the milk chocolate that you're using for this particular recipe, say suppose is 120 grams, and my 1 kilo of milk chocolate costs me some 400 rupees, and my 120, how much is it going to cost me? And then you have to arrive at the cost of that milk chocolate that was used in this particular recipe. You're using the orange zest, then obviously the cost of one orange has to go in, and like you have to write down the cost of every small material you are adding into that particular recipe, and you're going to divide that, add all the values together and multiply it by 3. And now out of which you've made 4 financiers, then that multiplied by 3 value, you will divide by 4 to have the price of 1 financier. So what I will do, I am going to do the costing for these products that I have made, and I will share it on the Excel sheet into the WhatsApp group. Now you can go and add the costing of your chocolate. So now I've used Van Houten, and say it is the milk Van Houten's price if I'm going to add. Then in the place of the price of the chocolate that I have used, then you could add the cost of the chocolate or the product that you are going to buy from, whatever the price is. And then the Excel is just going to give you the cost of each of the product. Now, out of that one recipe, I was able to make 4 pairs together and 4 sandwiched cookie. Now, if I had made it smaller, then I would obviously have maybe 6 or even 8, even smaller than that. So obviously for that entire recipe is going to cost me this much, and the price of that entire batch of the recipe is going to cost this much. Then I have 8 cookies or 4 cookies, then obviously the price of the cookies will vary depending on the size. So I'll do the costing for this and I will send it out. So that will help you to price your products when you are going to make and then sell it. Okay. Can we soak non-alcoholic with fruit juice? No, don't soak your non-alcoholic with fruit juice. It generally cuts down the shelf life of the cake in the first place. It just becomes soggy, and I don't like the non-alcoholic cakes become fudgy like that, being soaked with fresh fruit. I don't do that. I suggest you also don't do. Also, why? Because when we tested it here, we did leave the non-alcoholic ones without soaking in the room temperature for 4-5 days, cling wrapped and stored properly. It was still good and nice. It was moist, and that little dense that I prefer in the fruit cake, everything was just perfect, except that punch from the rum was missing. That is fine, because if you're going to give it out to anybody who are going to like non-alcoholic, like they've never had an alcoholic fruit cake, for them they wouldn't know, obviously. So just leave it like that, which I had tested. But obviously, if you would really like to go ahead and test adding fresh fruit, you could maybe take one small slice, brush it with the fresh fruit that you think maybe will add that value and make your cake taste better. You can wrap it and keep. Obviously, that adding that juice is going to give that orange flavor, whatever juice you're going to add. But we have added everything in this. We have added all the zest, every fruit possible, and the spices are just right. So it is just going to be bursting with flavors already. And the moistness is there in that cake, and that is going to make you feel any better without soaking with the fresh juice. How to feed the rum cake? Twice or thrice a week. See, if you're going to say maybe give this cake and then you're going to bake like a month before, twice a week is fine. Like only a tablespoon. So initially, when you start with like the 3 tablespoons of rum we had used to soak, then every 4 days after, you can take it and then add just a tablespoon. Otherwise, it is going to choke people with a lot of rum, because you are frequently soaking it. And then when somebody is just going to eat it, like the day you're just sending it, you had soaked it like 8 times in the last 2 weeks, that will be a lot of alcohol. And it will be too sharp, even that flavor, that smell immediately when people take the slice and go near before biting, it is like too much of the punch. Ideally is 1 week. Now you could even make 2 months before and then keep feeding, keep soaking it with, it is not even soaking, it is just feeding to let it mature a week, a tablespoon, depending on the size. For that size that you guys are going to make, that 1 kg, 2 tablespoons of rum should be fine to go ahead and feed it, and then again wrap it up and then keep it. Okay, and can you tell us again the type of fruits that can go into the mince pie mix? Mentioned you used dry banana. No, it was fresh banana. Did I mention dry banana? No, it was fresh banana chopped, ripe. Okay, it was not dry, I said ripe. Okay, so I'd used pineapple, apple, and banana. You could use kiwi, avocado, any soft, fleshy fruit you can add. Fresh ones, like maybe even strawberries, raspberries, blueberries, everything can go in and make it like some exotic fruit mince pie, you could call it that way. But here, obviously, they are the locally available, easily available fruits. So maybe I would call it the fruit mince pie only. You can use exotic fruits and then call it that way. There are so many varieties of brown sugar available. Which one should we use for the best results? See, buy the ones that is like really fine. Okay, the ones that has like the bigger granules doesn't really combine with the butter that quickly with the time that we want the butter and the sugar to be together well. So look for the brown sugar that is quite fine, with finer granules. Any brand for that matter is fine. Like if I pick out a 1 or 2 brand that maybe I had used, then maybe you wouldn't be able to figure out what the other brands are for the finer ones. Look for the quality, check in the pack, and then see bigger granules, maybe don't use. The smaller ones, they are better. You tell us how to take the zest of the orange and lemon. Maybe we can just show the zester that we have. Okay, I have a orange for the lemon that's not zested. It is there. New one is not there. One fruit, yeah, any fruit. Lemon is there. Okay, so get the lemon and the zester. So let me just show it to you. Okay, this is the zester that I have. I felt, I was just doing a lot of lemon and orange here when I was doing the trials, even before the Christmas thing. So I felt a zester, investing in a zester was very important. Okay, so it looks like this. Okay, and then that's the lemon. So okay, so I'm just going to go in and then keep scraping. And I don't want the white part of even both the lemon and the orange to be scraped. So you can see that white part is there, and what you find here is the yellow part. So gentle scraping. Once you start using the zester, you'll know how much pressure to put, so you don't go into that white part and then scrape the white part. So this zester just retains the zest in it, and then later I can just tap it down. So I'll just go look for the places where I haven't, scraped. Like you can see this part is all scraped and this part is not yet. So I can just go and just have the orange that we have already done. We'll just show how much of the skin we have, the orange that has already been zested out. So we've used up all the oranges. We just got it right enough that we will need for the session. So there's no excess orange. What I can show you is like there is quite a lot of the zest just staying there. So obviously I don't want to go in for the okay, so it's been completely zested out, and this is what we have. And this I will just tap it down on a plate and then remove entirely. Okay, and this is the orange that was completely zested out. So you can see that little orange part which is not zested, that skin is here. This entire place has been zested. Like this is the lemon and the zest has been removed. Okay, so for you to just get an idea. So you do the orange, you do the exact thing, like go around and scrape it. That's how I do. Okay, and can you tell us how to take? Zest is done. Should we change the cling wrap when we open the cake to feed it? You don't have to change the cling wrap. You open and then soak it and then wrap it back. But depending on the quality of the cling wrap, now if it doesn't stick together well, then remove and then turn it. There's no hard and fast rule like, that old cling wrap is only going to do the wonder. No, depending on how you are going to wrap it back safely. And obviously the previously soaked rum would completely been absorbed in the cake, and then the cling wrap is going to be dry. Maybe you can chuck it and then also use a newer one. If we pre-soak the dried fruits, so minimum 3 months do we have to feed the cake. So feeding the cake and then having the fruits soaked for 3 months are two different things. Feeding the cake is important as long as you want to bake the fruit cake quite ahead, like 3 months ahead of time, and then keep feeding it every week, and then it is just getting ready before you're going to give it out during Christmas. Now, if you have 3 months old soaked fruits, that step that you can skip recipe is cooking of the fruits. Skip the cooking of the fruits part and You can also skip the soaking part that I had showed because you already have the soaked fruits before, right? So you use your 3 months old soaked fruits and use it in the batter. Caramel syrup will be there. You skip the second and the third part, and you use the measured fruits from the previously soaked one and use it on the recipe for making the batter in which the caramel syrup will be used. Class was very informative, interesting, and the methods were presented so well. You also answered all our questions patiently. Thank you, Anita. Thank you so much for the informative session, Gayatri. Thank you. Bye.